Okay, so the title of my presentation is Transit Safety and Security, but I'm going to start with a few kind of just welcoming ideas, thoughts to get us going, really the reasons that you guys are here to begin with, right? So first, maybe I can make it move. Okay, so first we have scholarship applications open right now. If you haven't applied yet and you're a USF student, please apply. We have more money to give away than students that apply half the time. So fill out the quick application. Applications are due September 25th. This particular link will lead you to both the Cutter Transportation and the Georgia Brosh scholarships. So they're available for undergrad, master's, and PhD students. So we have 6 scholarships total just at that one QR link. Okay, next is the McGrath Student Scholarship, which is through the Florida Puerto Rico Institute of Transportation Engineers, and it's open only to students. And it's due a few days earlier, September 22nd. But it's the same application requirements, just a little bit different page that you fill out. So you really only have to write like one, 500-word, like why you should get it kind of thing. And then if you happen to volunteer, it doesn't have to be ITE volunteer experience, but there's a whole nother scholarship available through the Florida Puerto Rico Institute of Transportation Engineers that's just focused on volunteers. So we recommend whoever just came in, Pam. Thanks. We recognize that oftentimes it's the later in life students, the PhD students that qualify for some of those other scholarships. And so this scholarship, we're looking to recognize some of the younger students that are just starting out. And if you're not already a member of USF ITE, of all of the titles that I hold, I'm also currently the faculty advisor here. So this link will lead you to BullSync, where you'll have to sign in with your USF credentials. And I'll approve it as soon as you do. Okay, and then last but not least of the QR codes, and I have them all up front if you guys don't want to take pictures of them here, is to sign up for International ITE. It's free for students the whole time that you're a student. And as soon as you do that, you'll get signed up for all of the local emails that come through the Greater Tampa section and the Florida Puerto Rico district. Okay, so I feel like every presentation should kind of start with like, who the heck are you and why should I pay attention in the first place? So you heard a lot about who I am from Dr. Lee, but I'm also a woman, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm an employee. I'm no longer a daughter. I lost both of my parents. I lost my mom this year, my dad when I was 17. But I am a chair, a co-chair, a representative, a professional. So I have a lot of influences that give me different perspectives than I'm sure a lot of you. Oh, you accidentally muted me too. Okay. I don't think so. I think I'm good. No, I think you're good, Pam. I think we're all good. No, you're good, guys. If you're online and you can't hear us, then make some noise, put something in the chat, and Pam will be able to fix it. So I say all of this because who we are and what we do and our experiences, they really influence kind of our perspectives and how we approach everything, right? So I told you I lost my dad when I was 17. I lost him to a motorcycle accident. And so it was very sudden. It was a safety related event that then made me more focused on safety almost immediately. And then I became more aware of some of the things that he told me that I didn't really listen to as a teenager, right? Because at 17, we all know a lot more than our parents. And so I started listening to, he told me I should be an engineer. And I remember when he told me that, I said, Dad, I'm never going to drive a train, get another dream, right? Like, you had a daughter, sorry. I didn't realize that engineers did more than drive trains. So I started going to school to become an engineer. And then I decided transportation engineering was for me. And it really was because I think a lot of those touch points, right, that happened when I was younger. And so what did I want to do when I graduated? I went to school here, and then I was like, I was really involved in ITE. I had so many opportunities. I said, I want to do anything but transit work. And so I applied at all these different places. I got offers at all of them. I ended up accepting the one offer here at USF, and the first project I got assigned, transit. So I was really bummed, but I actually fell in love. And ever since then, I've really loved all the work that I do with transit. So why should you care? Why should you listen to me? I guess I'm hoping that in some way you'll see some sort of relationship between you and maybe some aspect of me and figure out a way that we can get you exactly where you're supposed to be within our industry, because we need more talent, we need new talent, and it's so much fun. And there's so many opportunities. Okay, so today I'm going to focus mostly on the fun projects that I've worked on so that you guys can see how cool transit is, because I know not everybody thinks transit is cool. But okay, acronyms abound, of course. FTA is the Federal Transit Administration. FDOT is the Florida Department of Transportation. So the majority of the projects that I do are either FTA or FDOT sponsored. And I'm going to talk about just a few. The Safety Standards Strategic Plan, which informed the Safety Standards Development Program. And then we also are independent evaluators for the Safety Research Demonstration Program, which is probably the most fun project I've ever worked on. And then I'll talk about a couple of statewide projects towards the end, and then a new upcoming project. Okay, so the Safety Standards Development Program was informed by the strategic plan. So we went and we analyzed data for about a year. We went back to the feds and told them, okay, listen, this is all the issues that you're having according to the data that you collect. And this is how you should probably approach the priorities of addressing each of these issues, right? So pretty cool idea. By the way, do you all know what engineer, like the two-letter or two-word description of an engineer? You know what we're doing, right? We're just problem solving. That's all we're doing. So it doesn't matter what kind of engineer you are, all you're doing is solving problems, and the problems change more rapidly, I feel like, in transportation, which is why I really wanted to go into transportation and not structures. I didn't want the copy and paste kind of life, right? So transportation keeps you on your toes because people are weird, and we have to deal with people. Okay, so once we developed this strategic plan to kind of give the feds, the FTA, like a guideline of how they should approach all of these issues that they're having, we won the Safety Standards Development Program bid, and we developed a working group. So we invited people from transit representative from agencies that are small, medium, large, all over the U.S. So WMATA is Washington, D.C., SEPTA in Philly, MARTA in Atlanta, MBTA in Boston, New York, BART is in San Francisco, Austin Metro in Texas, LA Metro, TriMet is in Portland, Oregon, Broward County Transit is a medium-sized agency down in Broward County, Florida. And then we also had CTAA, Community Transportation Association of America, the National Rural Transportation Association Program, the American Public Transportation Association, and the Agglomerated Transit Union. So we had union representation too, which kept all of these conversations really interesting. So all of us got together. They helped us come up with more guidance of what problems the transit agency really is facing and how can we fix it. So from all of these meetings over, let's see, 2017 through 2023, so a several-year process, we've now had 26 reports published. We had 3 more reports published right after I finished this presentation. And so I'm going to just talk about, I guess, a few of them as we go through, but I wanted to put all of them on the screen. And if you want to learn more about any of them, please come talk to me afterwards, send me an email, find me on LinkedIn. I'm so passionate about all of these. And if I didn't write them, I can get you directly in contact with whoever did write them. So this picture here, I think is really interesting because we're talking about guidance in tunnels and emergency situations, right? And so a lot of these are situations that you might not expect if you're not from a transit agency or if you've never experienced these things, but I can promise you that you don't want to first think about it when the emergency is happening, right? So it's really helpful to have this kind of information and guidance. The light rail technology scan and case studies was my favorite because we got to travel all over. We literally got to go to 10 different transit agencies and just ask them questions, look at their data. We looked at kind of what problems they have and how they mitigate those problems. And then we made a big report that showed all of the different transit agencies, how they can mitigate similar problems if they're having them. The crash energy management for the streetcars. So there was some crash testing that had gone on in Pueblo, Colorado, where they literally drove 2 trains into each other, some with couplers, some without couplers, to try to see the difference and how they would collide and rise and telescope and all of those things. So the videos associated with so many of these projects are really a lot of fun. And here we were, actually, a whole group of us out in Pueblo. Oh, it's going to start moving on me. But a bunch of us out in Pueblo where they were training firefighters here. So they would light different chemicals on fire, and the different chemicals would burn different colors depending on what's burning, right? So it was really interesting to get to watch some of these hands-on trainings that they're conducting out there. Plus, we got to put on some really fashionable safety garb. So we all had to pose for a picture. Okay, some of the next projects that we worked on this mitigation for trespasser and suicide fatalities, I got to work on with Dr. Paesong Lin. Have any of you had Paesong? Yeah, I'm sure. So this was a fun project. Again, we got to travel around. And we got to ask the different agencies, what are they doing to prevent not just trespassers, but suicides as well. So suicides is a whole different challenge to mitigate because when you're trying to stop someone who does it on accident, it's a lot different than trying to stop someone who does it on purpose, right? So we'll get into it a little bit later, but some of the safety research demonstration program projects, like New York right now is working on a front of the end train contraption that will hopefully grab somebody that tries to jump in front of the train and pull them in like an airbag type idea rather than, you know, pushing them out or squishing them. Let's see. Oh, medical fatigue and fitness for duty was a really fun one. We got to kind of play with some of the rules, right, of what transit agencies have to follow for their frontline employees to make sure that they're taking breaks and sleeping appropriately, so they're not falling asleep while they're driving us around, right? Let's see. Another photo of us, this was in SEPTA, and you can see that most of us look happy, and this was after like 2 days of kind of sitting and talking nonstop, right? So we all really have a good time, and the best part about this is that we get to build connections with each of these agencies. So now, when I'm headed to, you know, Philly or to Washington, D.C. or whatever, I have someone there that I can talk to that can get me the information that I need. And so really, I think through all of this work that we do, you'll find in general, when I'm presenting, I'm trying to break this down to be like the most digestible as possible. I could get up here and talk in really big words that would probably go over half of your heads, especially if you're not paying close attention. That's really not the point though, right? We all know that we're really smart. The point is presenting what we've done in a way that you're going to remember it and you're going to actually act on it. And so the goal in all of this really is to present some actionable items. And I think that's the most beneficial part of getting an engineering degree and being a successful engineer, is convincing not just other engineers that you know what you're talking about, but convincing the general public. Not just that you know what you're talking about, but that they understand what you're saying to them. Okay, so some other projects that we worked on that were a lot of fun, this bus accident investigation and rail accident investigation. So we got to go through and pretty much follow all of the training that all of the accident investigators go through, and then we got to pick it apart and tell them what they were missing, kind of what they could do better. And then we got input from others that actually do this so that we could, you know, give insight and expertise so that they could make it a better program moving forward. Over-the-counter and prescription drug use in the public transit industry was another really interesting one. So I worked part on that one, but we have a whole specialist here, and she just focuses on nothing but drug and alcohol compliance. Really fun job, I would imagine, except the compliance part. But she wrote the majority of this, and I just kind of went through and tried to make it a little more digestible, like I said. And then let's see, the rail transit roadway worker protection. So there are so many technologies that are coming out right now to try to save workers that are working along the rail line that don't know that a train is coming, right? And so this report focused on some of those challenges that are in place. And then we have some safety research demonstration projects that are testing different technologies to see what we can do there. So this rollover rig is in DC, excuse me, and you go inside and they actually tilt it. And so they let you go in, and it's a full train on the inside. Looks just like a WMATA train, and you go in and it's tilted sideways. And even at that 15 degrees, it doesn't look like much, but it's really hard to stay upright. Another part of that rig, they smoke it out completely, so they fill it with smoke that's safe to inhale, and then you can do trainings in there so that you can train, first responders on how to respond to incidents that are smoke incidents. I'll say that I started walking into the smoke train and I took 2 steps back. I was like, no, I don't care that much to go in there and feel like I'm gonna die. But this was really cool. You felt kind of drunk as you walked through. So I guess I put the pictures in between each of these schedules of reports just to show that, every 3 months or so, we would meet up and we would not only talk about all the work that we've completed, but we'd have some sort of field trip and go out and really help to build the team building, the relationships that we had. Okay, let's see. Inward and outward facing audio and video recordings for rail transit vehicles. So this really focused on the structural integrity of these videos to ensure that they would make it through a crash and be available to have the data that you need after a collision occurs. Or emergency lighting and signage for rail transit passengers is really about kind of on an airplane, they tell you if an emergency happens, you'll see the lighting along the roadway or along the seats. It's a similar idea, but for transit, right? So that you would know how to get out, especially on rail in tunnel environments is most important. So here we were recently at MARTA in Atlanta, and they have this train as one of their projects that has a bunch of technology on the bottom, and it checks the wheel-rail interaction as it's going, and it tests the shape of the rail as it's going along. So it can go at the same speed as any passenger, revenue passenger vehicle, so it's not messing with their throughput or any of that. And it's collecting all of this information without having to put somebody out on the rail to actually do the testing and the measuring. So it's really improving safety a lot and efficiency. And that's a technology by EMSCO. Okay, so let's see. The next one, so as we're going further, these are actually going back in time. So some of the first ones that I worked on was crash energy management for both buses and small buses. And here in Florida, we have a really cool facility up in Tallahassee where we can put them on tilt tables, and we just kind of tilt them until they fall and crumble and crash, and then we test, their deflection and all these other things. We can hit them with all kinds of mallets and different testing materials so that we can test not just the structural strength of each individual part, but also where they connect, which is really important for these less than 30-foot buses because they don't come from a manufacturer as a bus, as a less than 30-foot bus. They come as like a body on chassis, and then we put aftermarket, right? That bus body type on it. And so that's where you really have to make sure that you're doing all of those safety testings because those buses are carrying like the most fragile of transit riders. And then these very last 3 were the 3 that were just released. yesterday or the day before yesterday, procuring and maintaining battery electric buses and charging systems, safety and security certification of electric bus fleets, and guidebook for deploying battery electric buses. So we heard over and over again of the challenges, especially with, let's say, maintenance techs, that they're scared to work on these buses because they don't want to get shocked. It's nothing that they're used to, right? Or how the buses can't operate the same as a diesel bus because they have to be charged more often, or elevation or heat affects their battery operating time more so than you would see in a diesel bus. And so there's tons of findings and guidance and best practices in those reports. And even through the pandemic, we met. So this was a group of us, and we all went trolley streetcar ride. It was like a big loop through San Francisco. We did, bus, BART, trolley, ferry. It was all of the above, and we had a great time even through the pandemic. And then we have a couple more that are about to be published, using AI intelligence and vision-based systems for monitoring trespassing. Dr. Cortillis, I don't know if any of you have taken any classes with him, but he also works here at Qatar. He worked on that. And then the mobility data standards specification for interoperability was by Dr. Konkas, who's also here at Qatar and teaches some courses in econometrics, economics. Yeah, economics. Okay, so that's, for the most part, that program. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the safety research demonstration program projects that I get to be the independent evaluator on. So independent evaluator, if you ever get this opportunity, is like by far the best of all the jobs, because you really get to just look at what everybody's doing and ask them, did you consider, or, maybe this isn't the best approach. And so really all you're doing is kind of bouncing your ideas off of all of the work that they've already done for the most part. But, we're informed as we do this. So I'm just highlighting a few of them. I think there's like 17 total projects throughout the 2 years that we've done it. So I certainly don't have time to talk about all of them, but the automated emergency braking in transit buses was really cool, done out of Pierce Transit, where they put dummies in front of the buses on the Virginia test track. And, we're literally, luckily it wasn't students, it was actually like, dummies, test dummies. And they just would put them out in front of the buses and the buses would stop in time. They couldn't quite get to the stopping forces that would not impact standees. I'm being very cautious in the way that I say it, right? And so they decided not to move into revenue testing in this particular study. But they did come up with a lot of findings and recommendations so that hopefully another transit agency will apply for a similar project and take their lessons learned and move forward from there. Another one that's really fun that's currently going on is the risk ranking for grade crossing intersections using artificial intelligence video analytics at TriMet. So everybody's got limited data and limited money, right? The whole idea is to try to focus where we should put this money and try to invest in the most dangerous intersections that we have. And so TriMet put up AI videos across several of their intersections where they're known to have the most issues, and then they're ranking those issues. They're collecting all the data over several months and then ranking each of those sites by the type of issues that they're facing and what kind of mitigations they should implement there. And so really it's just a way of improving the reliability and the usefulness of the limited money that they have. I touched on this one earlier, the front of train options for mitigations of fatalities in train and human interaction events. So this one's been so fun because I love to see stuff crush and crash and bang and boom and catch on fire. And so the biggest thing is every material that we test, we're burning on fire to see what kind of smoke, what kind of offputs come out. So every material they decide, yes, this is worth testing, we get to catch it on fire. Also, we get to crush it. So we get to drop things on top of it. We get to sled test things into it to test how much it will give, how much bounce back it's going to have, all of these different ideas. So in other words, we get to blow stuff up, we get to light stuff on fire. This one's so much fun. Hopefully what's going to result is no people dying or being blown up or caught on fire in the end, right? So the whole idea is that there will be some sort of false floor that will come out if something's sensed, and it would capture and pull you in some sort of netting or material that won't kill you. Now you will likely still break something because we're talking about, you know, big trains and people, and we're fragile and trains aren't. But the whole idea is a lot of fun, and we're working with people not just from New York City Transit, but from Virginia Tech University, from Trinity College in Dublin. So it's literally all over, and lots of different vendors involved in that one. The loss of shunt and red signal overrun secondary technology at CTA. So this is really a technology that's being put in place to ensure that the trains aren't running the red lights so that they won't crash into each other. It seems like it should already be in place. It's not. And so this is a fun project that they're testing. And loss of shunt is really loss of energy, right? So you certainly don't want a train going down the track with no energy. It happens. And so these projects are in place to try to minimize the amounts of times that those things happen. Secondary roadway worker protection is literally just like an armband that sits on the worker's arms. And then there's a technology on the front of the train, and then there's technologies put along the rail line that will flash. And so if you're working as a roadway worker, a train is coming, your arm's gonna buzz and the light's gonna flash to tell you that the train is coming, get out of the way. And then you'll acknowledge it. The train operator will know that you've acknowledged it and can then proceed through. So it's really another way of not killing the people that are working on our railways. Always a plus. And then the last one that I'll talk about here is the transit mirror configuration, which might seem pretty boring, but they had to go through so many layers of approval through FHWA and other regulatory systems because they were trying to change literally the design configuration of the mirror on the transit buses to determine what would be safest. The report is now out, and New York City Transit decided exactly what they already had was the safest. And so they're not moving forward anymore. But there are two of the report projects that are all available on the FTA website. So if any of these interest you, I can certainly send you the link to the final report. You can get you into contact with the authors if you want more information. Okay, so some of the statewide projects that I'm working on or have worked on recently. As I mentioned in kind of my introduction, everyone is struggling, including the transit industry, for hiring and retention. And so one of my colleagues, Stephanie Lewis, and I worked on this report on hiring and retaining transit workforce employees. And we interviewed a representative sample of all of Florida transit agencies. So it was like 40 transit agencies included in this sample size, which is pretty good. I don't know how many of you have done surveys or samples, but getting survey responses when you're not paying them for them are not always easy and typically take some time and motivation. That's, again, where those relationships that you've built can come into play. So what we found here were really just some best practices that agencies can make. Biggest one, the most resounding one, was pay them more, which seems pretty obvious, but I think sometimes they need reports that they can send upward, you know, to have some sort of argument of why they really do need to pay the employees more. So my most passionate project that I've ever worked on is this project to stop human trafficking. So this was a side project. How many of you have heard of TRB, Transportation Research Board, in January? Always in DC, never nice weather. Actually, 2020, it was really nice weather. We should have known the world was about to end, but that's a total side note. Okay, so I went to TRB, and it's a whirlwind of so many different sessions that you can go to. And I chose this session on human trafficking in transit. And I went in with zero expectations and left and had cried half of my makeup off and had to go refresh my face and everything, because I just felt so passionate about everything that had happened. They had a victim survivor in there that kind of gave her story, and then all of these transit agencies that talked about the trainings that they provide, and that Truckers Against Trafficking was there, and they talked about how they developed these trainings. And so I thought, this is such a niche topic, but it's so important, and I've got to find a way of working in here, of doing something with this. And so I just kind of kept it in the back of my mind. And we had a survey for some Florida transit agencies, and I asked, what topics do you guys want to talk about? And this actually, human trafficking, got brought up. And it got brought up because in Orlando, there was a man that was posting flyers in their transfer station about, would you like to become a star? Become a star today, give me a call, I'll make you famous. Turns out it was a human trafficking recruiter looking to, potentially traffic anyone who was willing to respond to these flyers that they were putting up around the transit agency. And so I heard about this and I thought, well, okay, there's a connection. I've got to figure it out. So what do you do, right? Well, we all offer this training. We give this 32-minute video training to all of our new employees, and it tells them how to recognize human trafficking. So the first thing I did was take the training. And in the training, towards the end, it says, okay, so you should, now that you've learned all of these steps and what to recognize, you should follow your agency's protocol on what to do, on how to report it. And then so I thought, well, who has this protocol? And so I sent a survey to the transit agencies, and not one in the state had one. And so I'm also on the APTA Bus Safety Committee, which is the National Transit Committee. And so I sent a survey to all of them, and not one agency had a procedure in place for anyone to actually follow if they did recognize a human trafficking situation. So I convinced FDOT we wrote a scope. We said, listen, we can solve this problem. We know it exists. And FDOT said, sure, we'll fund that. So, I mean, it was a little bit more than that, but that's the gist. And I convinced Truckers Against Trafficking to work with me to make sure that we would get all of the right information in there. So fast forward just a few months, we worked together, we got it all done. There's now a human trafficking procedure template online for transit agencies to adapt and adopt, and it goes through kind of each step that a frontline employee or a dispatcher or a safety supervisor should follow if they do happen to see a suspected human trafficking situation. And I am so passionate about this because I feel like I know that I can change lives just with this one piece of work, right? Just a couple months of work. Something else I'm really excited about that we just got awarded a little less than a month ago is the Transit Worker and Rider Safety Best Practices Research Project through the Federal Transit Administration. And so we're going to identify the risks that transit agency workers and riders face and determine how we can best mitigate those risks so that you don't get assaulted while you're either riding or operating a transit vehicle. The statistics there are pretty crazy. So there's only a few of us in the room. We still have some time. I'd like to hear about what you guys are passionate about. Like, what do you want to do? Dennis, what do you want to do when you grow up?
Well, I want to start this transit company called Blue Rail to use existing rail lines from St. Petersburg all the way to Jacksonville. That way, traffic can be reduced on Interstate 4, and people have options of getting somewhere a way that's cheaper than paying for gas. This would be in a for-profit company, so it would be able to be competitive with the car.
All right, so Dennis is looking, for those of you online, looking to start a transportation company that would put some use to the rail lines from the bottom of Florida to the top of Florida for the most part.
Yeah.
I don't know you in behind tennis. What's your name?
Ismail.
Ismail, what would you like to do? What do you want to do when you finish grad school?
I'm a structural student, so
Mhm.
I'd like to work as a structural engineer. I'm interested in buildings and bridges, but more in bridges. So I definitely like to go in horizontal scope, and I think that involves a lot of relation with transportation, trying to the knowledge.
That's really, really smart. So Ismail wants to build bridges. I'm obviously oversimplifying the response, but I'll say that I took capstone with Dr. Liu here, and we certainly required a lot of understanding of what the bridge, the construction of the bridge, and not just the number of lanes that we wanted to put on it, right? And how about you? What's your name?
Yeah, my name is Hui Qingyu. Yeah, my major is transportation engineering safety. Yeah, and I want to in the future combine my professional knowledge about the pavement and statistic knowledge to make the highway safety. Yeah, I just want to teach or research.
So teach or research on improving the safety of pavement. I have a great friend, Minna, who now works at USDOT, and she did her PhD actually on improving the safety of pavement here. So that's really awesome. I only love it because she loved it so much, right? And her passion like absorbed into me. But to me, asphalt was not my favorite class. It's okay though. We all have our own passions, right? How about you? What do you want to do?
My name is Anthony. I want to work as a transportation engineering when I get my master's degree in transportation.
Transportation engineering is so big.
Yes, I still don't know specifically.
So, okay. Do you like planes like Dr. Zhang, or like roads like Dr. Liu, or like buses and transit? You don't have to answer now. I'm just throwing some ideas out there, right? Safety. So I got into safety mostly because I decided no one can say safety isn't needed, right? Like it's really hard to be like, no, we should invest in safety. And I was like, oh, well, that's where I should get into. But even transportation safety is so broad, right? Even transit safety is so broad. So yeah, you got a long way to go though, don't worry. You'll have time to figure it out. And then like me, maybe you'll say you don't want to do transit and end up loving it. How about you? What do you want to, I mean, I know you're like half grown up and half working, but when you finish, what do you really want to focus on?
Yeah, so I work as a traffic engineer, in the beginning next year. But after I finish my master's, I really want to become more specialized into not only highway safety, but also into like ATMS and ITS design. So like smart signal deployment and whatnot.
Fantastic. So Dr. Lin is certainly one that you'll want to be nice to and stay friends with. And Emmett over at District 7, I don't know if you know him, but if you don't, next time you're at an ITE event, make sure that you remind me and I'll introduce you. He's like the safety czar that graduated from here, and he's so passionate too. So we'll make some good connections. Remind me again of your name. Nick. And then, okay, in the back.
Hi, I'm Johnny. Actually, after I do my exam, I don't know. I will see what I will do after my FE exam.
After your FE. So when is your FE?
Actually, next summer.
Next summer. Okay, so you got a little time to think about it. And you have no preference, like in the air, on the road, somewhere between?
Mostly traffic.
Traffic? Okay, that's cool. Signalization. I mean, there's so many different options that you can go into. Once you guys, really what I'm trying to figure out is who I should try to connect you with, right? That's my thought process of all of these conversations, of who would be most beneficial for you and what you want to do moving forward, because I know a lot of people locally and I'd love to connect you all. Okay, tell me your name and what you want to do.
My name is Peter. Right now, I'm an intern at FDOT, and after I finish my master's, I want to keep working there, possibly in my construction department. Interested in that.
So what is the most challenging part of working in the construction department?
There's a lot of details to pay attention to, a lot of easy things to miss, just making sure everything, being on schedule as well. That's another important thing.
Yeah, I remember taking just a whole class on scheduling, right? And following it was like a nightmare to me. I have no more presentation, but I have my information up here. And I'm happy to hang out and answer any questions. And pizza will be here in probably 10 minutes, so you guys should certainly hang out. Do you have questions for me?
Can you show us the QR of the ITE or USF?
And I'm really hoping that you're all gonna apply for the scholarships too. I'm in charge of the selection committee, so I have actually no say on who actually gets to pick it because I send it out and everybody else votes and I just get to pick what their votes are. But I'm really hoping that all of your names are gonna be in there because there's nothing more disappointing to me than having thousands of dollars and nobody wants it. And so I'm really hoping that you will apply and convince your friends to apply too. Any other questions?
I get the next QR code. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see any questions from online. But I'm kind of interested in the human trafficking topic that you mentioned. Like, you mentioned that you received a training on human trafficking. So I'm interested in a bit more detail about covering this area.
Yeah. So this training was developed by Truckers Against Trafficking, which is like TAT is their acronym, and then they have a whole side portion of Truckers Against Trafficking that's busing on the lookout, and so it's focused just on school and transit buses, and it's a 32-minute video. That talks about from the perspective of a human trafficking survivor, and the opening of the video, she's at a bus stop and she says, "This is where I first met my trafficker," and then kind of goes through a bit of her story, and then talks about how she used the bus for each of her exit attempts until she was actually able to successfully exit the situation that she was in. And it goes through some scenarios of what to look for. So somebody that doesn't keep their own information, somebody who won't make eye contact, or who doesn't speak for themselves, or even obvious things like someone who offers sex for money, right? It talks about a lot of the different signs that you should look for, and then talks about kind of the impacts that those might have, and then there's also a video by Michigan State Police, and it shows a lot of frontline employees, so not just transit, but electricians and others that would go around in their daily routine. And then it plays the video, and then it slows it down and it goes backwards and it says, "Now here's all the things you missed." And you'll see someone getting pulled, or someone getting pushed into a van, or just all kinds of different things to look out for that you certainly don't recognize right away. They can fit right into the background of what's happening, right? So it's a eye-opening to give you awareness. And then it also talks about what you should remember if you see something like this. Remember descriptions of the person, descriptions of any vehicles, of the event that you saw, and those types of things, so that you know what to report.
This is a field that we attention to.
Yeah.
Very important topic.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I said, I went in, I just found it by accident, really, because I had a little bit of time in my TRB schedule, and became just so interested in it after that. So I've been working on it on and off, I guess, for 5 years now.
Have you worked on any other projects related to the future?
So that project just wrapped up, the one that with FDOT. We just finished it like earlier this year. And then I'm also working on a NCHRP project with Texas A&M on human trafficking response for state DOTs. But that one was awarded, but hasn't actually like, nothing's moved yet. Like the contract hasn't been finalized. So. Any other questions? We've sufficiently filled enough time for food. So.
Okay, so human trafficking is more about the trafficking throughout the world.
Yeah. Well, it's all. And actually, that's one of the myths, I guess, that they try to overcome is that it's not just somewhere else, right? And actually, Florida is like always in the top 3 around the world of areas where human trafficking is reported. So it's happening not just in Florida, but here in Tampa. So everywhere. Thanks for your attention, guys. Please eat.
Another question, and we're gonna end the seminar without it. And thank you for coming to this seminar, and hope you have a great long weekend.